I'm Amory, and I am here with the AMERIE'S book club selection for the month of September, which is What We Fed to the Manticore by Talia Lakshmi Kolluri. What We Fed to the Manticore is a beautiful short story collection that contains stories all written from the perspective of animals. That concept alone intrigued me, but I loved how you saw that the animals weren't necessarily in the wild by themselves, and what I mean by themselves is that some of them had human companions, and those who didn't were still very much impacted by humanity. For instance, we have a donkey in Gaza who agrees to be part of a man's do-it-yourself zoo in Gaza. The man creates this makeshift zoo so that the children in Gaza can have some semblance of joy while living under constant threat of being bombed. But the short story isn't about the man himself. The short story is how this donkey, who finds it quite undignified to have this experience in the first place, does become part of the zoo, makes friends with animals in the zoo, but also has to experience the harrowing situations that the people experience. He experiences how dangerous it is for the animals to simply exist. It was really eye-opening to read the story and to feel what this claustrophobia, this frightening claustrophobia would feel like to those who live under those conditions, both humans and animals. Another wonderful story is about a whale, a group of whales actually. In this story, you see that the whales are probably dealing with interference. There's a lot of human work in the oceans, and we hear a lot about how that can be damaging for the sea life, especially for animals whose hearing is so incredibly sharp that the idea of any kind of loud boom or even the clanging of ships, for instance, could be very destructive. And in this case, things like that really confuse the whales because they use song as roadmaps. So they chart the oceans and they just have to listen for each other's songs. Whales who've come and traveled these paths before. Another cool element to this story in particular was what I viewed as the creation of a new myth regarding how certain creatures got their legs, and I just thought that was so beautiful. There are other stories about pigeons and hunted animals, polar bears, that are just so gorgeous and poignant. So much of the collection is about the relationship between the tamed and the tamer, and how both parties, human and animal, are both the tamer and the tamed. There's a wonderful author's note in which the author says that to be tamed or to tame is to have a constant back and forth regarding communication, listening, communicating again, listening. So civilization, human beings are tamed by the wilderness around us, and the wilderness around us is tamed by human beings, whether these are on an individual level or civilization at large, because the animals are impacted by anything that human beings do on a small or large scale. And the relationships between humans and animals are explored throughout that spectrum, from varying degrees of personal contact. One might think that the collection would be sad / pessimistic, but there's actually a lot of hope in the collection. And that's one of the things that I was really pleased to come away with, because with such a large topic, especially when you're dealing with animals who don't have nearly as much control as human beings do in manipulating our environment, it could feel like a very one-sided, hopeless situation. But I loved that there were glimmers of hope, and not only glimmers of hope, I felt like the collection ended specifically on quite a hopeful message. This was such a beautiful read. If you're looking to shake up your reading life a little bit, I highly recommend reading this short story collection. Sad moments, of course, poignant, but also very hopeful and very creative, a really interesting approach to some very important themes. Also, this book cover is gorgeous. Gorgeous. Be sure to pick up the new AMERIE'S book club selection, What We Fed to the Manticore by Talia Lakshmi Kolluri. We'll be talking to the author at the end of the month, so make sure you join us. Follow along with the hashtags Read with Amory, AMERIE'S book club. Also follow us on IG at AMERIE'S book club, and also my personal IG at Amory, because that's where we hold the author chats. In the meantime, happy reading. And don't mind my scrunchie. Did you know the 90s are back? I love a good big scrunchie sometimes. And I have this scrunchie because now my bangs are getting longer. Remember I told you that I cut the bangs? And so they're getting longer, so they're doing that thing where they like stick out at the top. And so I just like pushed it down and then put this scrunchie. I have no regrets. I know it was impulsive. I have no regrets about cutting the bangs. I am glad that they are growing out, and I'm gonna do the curtain bangs. But you know, in the meantime, right now, they just want to do their own thing. Did I tell you happy reading yet? I feel like I didn't even... Happy reading! Oh my goodness, what if I like recorded that whole thing and I thought I was recording it, but I wasn't?